Also new this morning, the stock market has been rising. Americans have more money in stocks than ever before. Economists are warning that could be a problem. And then a market downturn could hit Americans harder than ever before. CNN's Matt Egan looking into this one for us this morning. What are you seeing, Matt?
Well, Kate, this is a double-edged sword, right? When markets are booming, like they have been, market rallies can really be a very good thing for the economy, right? Each record high can inspire confidence, get people to spend more money, right? Go out to dinner, buy a car, take a vacation. Of course, the problem is that it really does cut both ways because they're also exposed to potential market meltdowns that have happened in the past. And these really are historic levels of exposure. If you look at stock holdings, direct and indirect, like through 401ks and retirement plans, stocks make up 45% of household finances, right? Almost half. That's the most on record that goes back to the 1950s. And when you look at the trend here, you can see how this has really, really increased in terms of how much of people's portfolios stocks take up. Look at this. If you go back to 1980, it was just 13%. Today, it's 45%. Now, one thing I would note, though, is that this doesn't cut equally, right? The top 10% of households actually own 87% of the stocks, but still, the higher income households, those are the ones that are really keeping this economy afloat. And if there's a market reversal, a downturn, well, they could stop spending. And I think that this really does underscore why it was so critical that that market meltdown that we saw in March and in April over the president's tariffs stopped, right? If it didn't, it could have caused a self-fulfilling prophecy, actually causing a recession. Of course, the president blinked on those tariffs. He paused them for a period of time, and the market's really been off like a rocket ship ever since then. The S&P 500 has gained $15 trillion in value just since April 8th. A stunning figure. I think the bottom line is, Kate, you and I often talk about how the market is not the real economy, but I do think that this record high exposure shows that the market does have a significant influence on the economy, for better or worse.
Wow. Sorry. Like what? So wait a minute. So they're trying to spin this as bad. You guys getting the same thing that I'm getting here? But first of all, a couple of things, right? They try to say that he blinked on the tariffs and that's why it stayed. They try to play it in the way that, in essence, saying that the tariffs didn't work, and because the tariffs didn't work, him going back on what he was going to do then allowed the economy to flourish, and that's not at all what happened, right? He paused certain tariffs. Everyone was still at a fixed rate, right? So all that what they're saying there is total BS. Everything was still at a fixed rate. What he did do was the increases that he was going to make on top of the fixed rate tariffs. Those are the things that he paused. So he did blanket tariffs across the board, and then he said, "All right, this is the baseline. Other countries, we're going to go here, we're going to go here, we're going to go here," and he levied these large numbers to individualized countries. And waiting for a deal, basically saying, all right, if you're at 15%, if we don't come up with a deal by September, whatever, August, whatever, then it's going to go up to 40 or 50 or whatever. And those things he did pause, he did hold off because they were working out a deal. He said, listen, we're in negotiations now. I don't want to do this, and stifle negotiations. We're talking now. As long as he was in communication with the country, it never got to that point. It did for a couple of countries, right? And then what would happen when it happened to Canada, when it happened to all these other countries, whatever. As soon as those large tariffs were levied and actually went into effect, they immediately ran in and started negotiating, putting them on a weak footing, obviously, right? And that's the whole part of the plan. The part of the plan is, listen, here you're at 10%. We need to work out a deal in the next 30 days, or you're going to be at 50%. And if they're playing games and not coming to the table, then once that 50% kicks in, then they run to the table. Now you have them, because now they're scared, they're desperate. They're not going to stick to their guns because we're the number one consumer in the world, right? Everybody knows that we're the piggy bank, and everybody needs to sell their shit here, and that's the way it works. Trump, knowing that, uses that as leverage and is able to muscle good deals, good trade deals. That's just what's been going on. But here, to spin the fact that, so like, they're talking out both sides of their mouths, right? Because they're saying that we're up $15 trillion in a couple of months in S&P value. And that's bad because what if we go down? That's literally what they're saying. That's what they're saying. They're saying we're having a record historic boom, but it's not good because we may go down. And they're playing this as that it's not good because if they go down, then there'll be a massive depression and people are going to be sad. Boo-hoo. But then they're also saying that, you know, that the I think they're saying that 45% of the market is owned by what I don't remember what that number was, but they're saying that essentially 80% of the population owns the majority of the stock. So it's only going to really adversely affect the, I'm sorry, well, 80% of the population doesn't own the stock. So I guess something like 10 to 15% of the population owns 80% of the stocks, something like that. They were basically saying that it's a small subset, you know, maybe like one in 10, you know, 15% of the population that owns the majority of the stock. So, you know, okay, it'll adversely affect them, but you know, the average person is not invested in stocks at all. You know, I mean, you know, I have retirement accounts, stuff like that. So I would be affected. The average person that is, you know, has done like a normal job and has like a 401 and stuff like that, they would be affected. But those are all long-term things. I mean, unless you're looking to cash those things out, you know, entirely in the next, you know, I don't know when, because they're saying this, but they're also not saying that they anticipate a humongous downturn. So they're just throwing shade just for the sake of throwing shade. That's what I'm getting off of this news report here. Guys, if you're still here, please subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a lot. Just a small channel trying to grow. But yeah, so I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy that could be all-time high, trillions and trillions of dollars coming in, but you know, it could be bad. That is CNN. That's what they're portraying to their audience. Because there's no other way to spin it. So the spin that they're giving their audience, basically what CNN, the propaganda machine, it's CNN, what they do, what they're trying to give their audience a counterpoint to any other group that doesn't see what their group sees, right? So it's really hard to have a counterpoint when you have record amount of, you know, when your stock market's at a record high. Like, what's the counterpoint to that? Oh, the counterpoint to that is one day it could go bad and then all those people will lose money. Yeah, that's the stock market always. Like literally always. That is the definition of the stock market. But guess what? The more that's put into it, the better it is as a whole. And yes, there will be dips and corrections and downturns. That's always the case. But if you look at the S&P over the course of the past 50 years, guess what? You're making tons of money. Hand over fist. Always. Those corrections and those dips, they don't compare to the overall trajectory of the market. Those are just the facts. This is not financial advice, but throw some money in the market. That's what I would say. Nice and slow investment over the course of 40 years, and you'll be just fine. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. 6283Talk on the X if you want to find me. Please hit the subscribe button. I am John Soto. I'll see you again in the next video. Take care, guys.